I've always been a unique person, you know what I mean? Sort of laid back in a way, but very adamant and very passionate about what I believe. I think a lot of times that sort of throws people off because they don't expect me to have the mindset or the process of thought that I do. And so when you come in to watch my channel, you may hear a myriad of thoughts and ideas that could be different from others. What I want you to do is just sit back, like, share, and subscribe. Hello and welcome to the Lockhart Radio Podcast. I am your host, Felicia Lockhart, and today we are looking at the plan that both Trump and Netanyahu put together earlier on this month, July of 2025, and how swiftly it has unraveled. In recent days, the carefully negotiated pause that was crafted by both Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu that was designed to keep Israeli military operations out of Damascus and Sweida has completely unraveled. Just last night, the Israeli airstrikes again hit both regions amid renewed Druze Bedouin clashes, killing civilians and military personnel in Sweida and central Damascus. There was just a recent report that showed Syria's defense ministry has called these actions shocking violations, prompting an internal probe by its interim government. Meanwhile, U.S. envoy Tom Barrack, he flew out in to mediate a fresh ceasefire, coordinating a Thursday meeting between Israeli and Syrian officials to stabilize southern Syria. The fallout within the Trump administration has been palpable. Senior aides described Netanyahu's unilateral strikes as reckless, with one unnamed official telling a company that he's become, quote, a child who just won't behave and a madman. That's a quote there. The White House says that Trump himself was caught off guard and urgently called Bibi to rectify the situation. Their concern isn't just the on-the-ground violence, but the political ripple effects, which began as a strategic diplomatic win for Trump. This could now completely unravel, undermining the United States-Israeli alignment and emboldening regional adversaries like Iran and Hezbollah. What we do know is that what was pitched originally as a major foreign policy achievement, you remember how they were just happy about it. They were all over the news. I even covered it here. It started as a foreign policy achievement, and then, it went on to be this thing where everybody thought it was going to be a ceasefire and a regional calm. Well, now this whole entire thing teeters on a collapse. Overnight violence has forced the United States back into active mediation, highlighting just how tenuous that Trump and Netanyahu understanding was, and how quickly it can unravel into a fog of complete conflict. Now, meanwhile, in a dramatic escalation of international legal and diplomatic pressure, of all people, Brazil has now announced that it will formally join the South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice, the ICJ. Now, you may remember the original case filed by South Africa back in 2023 in December accuses Israel of committing acts of genocide during its military campaign in Gaza. And Brazil's move, confirmed overnight by a major news source, marks a significant shift, signaling growing support among nations in the global South for holding Israel accountable under the international law. The ICJ has already issued provisional measures requiring Israel to prevent genocidal acts and allow humanitarian aid, though it stopped short of ordering a ceasefire. Israel has consistently denied the genocide accusations, calling them politically motivated and baseless. This development comes at a particularly volatile moment as Israel's military conducted fresh airstrikes in Damascus and Sweida overnight, despite previously agreeing to avoid operations in those areas as a whole. If you remember when I covered the story a while back, at the top of July, They were at the end, I think it was like June 26th coming into July. But nonetheless, what they were saying was, oh, we're just going to do a little bit over here and a little bit over there, but we're going to mend all of this, and we're going to take this part, but we're not going to touch that part. Well, despite previously agreeing to avoid the operations in those areas under a ceasefire framework negotiated in early July between President Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, these things have now taken place. And those strikes have drawn backlash not only from Syria, but from within Trump's own diplomatic circles. That U.S. envoy, Steve Witkoff, and senior officials reportedly expressed frustration over the way that they view Netanyahu's breach of their July agreement. This is totally unbelievable that these things are happening, fearing that it just might destabilize the region and undercut the gains from Trump's Middle East peace strategy. The combination of Israel's continued military actions in Syria and mounting international legal scrutiny at the ICJ has honestly created a dual front crisis, one playing out in the courtrooms and then the other one playing out in the battlefield. With Brazil's new entry into the ICJ case, the legal pressure on Israel is no longer isolated. This isn't just a small little concentration of people who wanted to say something. This is actually broader. It's becoming a broader movement altogether, potentially leading to real diplomatic consequences and policy shifts. While the whole political media continues to fixate on everything else that's going on right now, these two developments, one legal again and one military, represent the kind of global alignment that could quietly reshape the geopolitical landscape. And nobody is looking at this. Nobody is really forming any opinion about it at all right now. Now, I do know that there was the opportunity for Netanyahu to start the court case, and you may have seen a couple of situations in the very beginning where he had gone to court. There was a few little stories that I saw of him sort of hanging around, shaking hands with people and and all of this stuff. But what happened when he attempted to go to court? Well, the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was diagnosed with food poisoning, and that prompted him to go home and rest up for 3 days under medical advice. So the doctors then reported him having suffered from intestinal inflammation as well as dehydration after consuming spoiled food. And he's currently being treated with IV fluids. Despite the illness, Netanyahu will continue overseeing the state of affairs remotely. So this is what it is. The impact on his corruption trial as a whole. Well, as a result, they had to reschedule everything. In his long-running graft trial, it's been canceled. The trial will not convene until, get this, not August, as some would think, not the end of July, okay, no, but in September, when regular court sessions resume post the summer recess. He's 75 years old. He did have a prostate surgery, I do remember that, in December, and he did have a pacemaker that was put in, and I think that was back in 2023. And this whole trial situation began in 2020, involving charges related to bribery, fraud, and a breach of trust. And the prosecution then wrapped up in about the middle of last year, 2024. Although his planned testimony and overall schedule has faced repeated delays due to his health, diplomatic obligations, and wartime duties. This guy is, oh boy, I'm going to hold off what I really have to say. But what I will say is this is a note for Trump, because he cannot control this man. No one can control this man. This man is not controllable, and he should not be trusted. Anytime you have information where this individual is coming back telling everybody that he's doing nothing, I've done nothing. What we're seeing now is our president is looking very weak in, I would say geopolitically, he's looking very weak. He's looking very weak in the eyes of everybody else that's looking in and peering in. And now that you have, a country like Brazil stepping in saying, hey, we don't agree with what's going on, we're going to add our name to the list of people who joined in with South Africa or, Africa a while back. And now we're going to add our name to that because we see it as the same. I don't understand how anybody could look at this any other way, right? Because that's exactly what it is. It is what it is. You can't shape this any other way, right? So I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out with us. This has been the Lockhart Radio Podcast, and we do appreciate you. My name is Felicia Lockhart, and this has been the Lockhart News Brief.